The Gloves of Protection, an Artefact solo adventure by Emir Pasanovic. Content warning. Violent death and burning. Creation of the Gloves of Protection. We remember feeling two magics. They've been there from our beginning, before we understood what we were, before we understood what magic, or indeed existence, were. We remember the two different magics intertwining with two different materials, creating two identical items of protection that made the whole that was we. First two words we remember hearing were protective gloves. The vibrations from a soft, caring voice enveloped our inside and our outside fabrics, at the same time naming us and defining our purpose. Usually we could hear other voices and sounds all around, but through it all, the strongest voice was that of our keeper. And the voice of the woman that first held us will stay with us forever, just like the materials and the magics we were made from. We never experienced the world in terms of light and darkness, but we see with touching, always in twos. First thing we remember touching our insides were the soft, skilled hands of our creator, perfectly fitting the voice we heard only moments earlier. Manicured with a thin sheen of sweat, tight muscles relaxing in our interior after channeling strong magics for who knows how long. Knuckles bending and straightening to test our flexibility, moving with purpose in different grabbing motions that we will get to know intimately in the years to come. Second thing we remember touching was a freezing vial of a strange, glass-like substance. Brittle and light, it was filled to the brim with a cold, heavy gas that spilled all over us as our creator moved us around. We understood that this was on purpose, to test our capabilities in a secure space, and we showed our appreciation by transforming the cold that would have undoubtedly ruined the well-manicured hands if we weren't there, into a comfortable warmth spreading throughout our insides. At that, a small sigh of relief escaped our creator's lips, the last lingering doubt going away with it. We would do our job and do it well, and she will be able to continue doing excellent work with our help. Chapter 1. Newly Forged. Our first keeper, our creator, was a trendsetter in her own time. All we learned about her and the world she moved through told us she was of great wealth and prestige. Even more than practical protection she would only use occasionally during her university research, it was important that we were elegant and fit well with other accessories. We often elicited exclamations of approval and admiration at the beginning as we were introduced to the society. But fashions come and go, and soon we were only brought out during the winter season, then only for special occasions. In the end, we were only used at the lab at the adjacent activities. Our favorite memories were the intimate moments of joy with other people, sincere emotions at a difficult job well done, a tear of frustration or joy wiped away. Even though we weren't necessarily at the celebrations themselves, we knew that we made them possible. Toughest practical exams passed, lifetime interpersonal connections made, graduations successfully accomplished. Our first memories were when we were misused, separated, discarded, dirty and forgotten for any number of days, weeks, even months. The separation in particular was the hardest and caused the magical ties that enabled the sensitive protections interwoven into us from the beginning to unravel. At the end, Sindalev brought us together for one more task, one more experiment, and we failed her. The intense cold of the freezing unit we were used to push quickly turned from a nice, warm sensation into a searing heat, burning the skin, melting the nail decorations, nearly melting the platinum engagement ring on her finger. We smelled this new, intense, burning stench of our failure for a long time. We were called broken. We were called irreparable. We were called so many ugly names, but most importantly, we were discarded by our Creator and those that witnessed our failure. Locked away in a disgusting box, but together, we waited. The gloves of protection rest for a year. Chapter 2. A Time of Glory. The time passed. In peace and quiet we reconnected and rebonded. The burnt skin turned to dust. The smell lingered and seeped into the other contents of the books. It was a peaceful time, broken suddenly by a number of voices moving nearby. They were moving things around, obviously searching for something. It didn't take us long to realize that they were looking for us. Cinder's name was repeated again and again. Her discoveries in magical skin treatments have brought her family name to new levels of recognition and success. The people searching for us talked about how it all started with our last accident, and how the patented spells had to have begun in the magics that were used to create us. All they had to do was find us and sell us to the highest bidder and be set for life. There was a rush of air as the box we were kept in was unsealed, and we heard an exclamation of joy, followed by a lot of coughing. A new pair of hands, wearing ordinary gloves of lower quality, picked us up and waved us around, slapping the dust off of us. A voice of our new keeper's companion whispered, "Holy shit, we're gonna be rich! That's exactly how Cinder's gloves were described! Holy shit!" A slight pause, and our new keeper whispered back, "We need to double-check they work." "They are! They look exactly right!" "We need to double-check they work. It might be a prototype that didn't work." "Oh, okay. I think I know just the thing." Our keeper followed the younger man through narrow corridors with shelves on either wall, the feel of compressed air and the abundance of abandoned items all around us. Our keeper slowly put us on, without removing the pair of gloves he was already wearing, denying us the feel of his skin and giving us a new, synthetic sensation instead of as we flexed after a long time, forming around these unfamiliar hands. "You realize I can't be seen dealing with this, or I'll lose the job at the uni. But I gave you the contact as the company. All you have to do is set up the meeting, and," said the stranger, helping our keeper. "Let's see if they work first." The eerie silence of university corridors after hours, sounds of doors opening and closing, and we were quickly in a room filled with the hum of different machines operating rhythmically and continuously. "This is the cryogenic experiments lab. We can't interrupt the ongoing experiments, but..." There was a hiss of a freezer door being opened by our keeper's companion. We felt the familiar cold air gently touch our outer layer for the first time in such a long while. Our keeper shivered involuntarily, but we gave a warm feeling to his palms, hoping it would make him feel a bit better. "There it is. Try and grab this orb, and tell me what you feel." Our keeper paused only for a millisecond, and grasped the proffered orb. The intense cold, at least 100 degrees below the water's freezing point, hit our outer layer, sending the familiar magics working immediately to transform and store the energies in our materials. We shared the transformed, sensible warmth with our keeper, listening to his deep breaths, feeling his blood course from his heart to the fingertips. "How does it feel? You're not screaming, that's good." After a moment's hesitation, our keeper extended one hand to grab his companion by the back of the neck. While holding the orb with the other hand, he rammed it into this student's half-open mouth, pushing it towards the back of the throat, the broken and frozen bits of tooth and bone getting caught in our material. There was a loud thump as the body fell to the ground, and the crackle and hiss of all the different tissues of the head and neck as they instantly froze and crumbled away onto the floor. The keeper picked up the orb and packed it away into a container for future use, and slowly slid us off of his hands. Sharp intake of breath, as the smell from our interior must have been less than pleasing, and we were in his pocket. Our keeper's name was Ollan Oak. With these two new tools at his disposal and the intimate knowledge of the city's criminal underground, it didn't take too long for him to climb the ladder to the top echelons of organized crime. We quickly learned how devastating a tool of destruction a protective garment like us can be at close quarters combat. And what couldn't be accomplished at close quarters could be arranged and accomplished just as easily if you had enough money. Because our second keeper never intended to use us for very long. The corporate demand for Cinderlev's design and production secrets was too high to ignore, and once our usefulness was coming to an end, Ollan put out the necessary information to sell us to the highest bidder. He organized the auction in his new seat of power, a penthouse in the hill district overlooking the rooftops of financial giants bidding for the most sought-after item on the market. All of the truly powerful people, of course, didn't show up in person to the auction, sending their legal or financial advisors instead. In the center of the reception hall, Ollan was sitting on his new throne. He took a deep breath and let it out slowly, whispering to himself so that only we could hear him, lying in his lap. This too will change. They will kneel before me the way they made me kneel for so long. An anonymous representative of an anonymous buyer picked up our box and removed us from our second keeper's presence and out of the community at large for a very, very long time. The gloves of protection rest for a century. Chapter 3. The Ruination. It turned out our creator brought us back. Not willing to risk getting competition, possibly for personal reasons of putting away the tools of her success and her scarring, Cinderlev didn't even touch the box we were stored in before locking us away. To this day, we wonder why didn't she just burn us to dust? Magics can't have been that strong, since our protective purpose failed after only being separated for certain periods of time. Maybe she needed a reminder of how she found her purpose and built her empire. In the end, it didn't go very well for her empire or us. Our creator's grandson, Las Onzago, read different books than his grandmother and felt strongly about the state of the world and his family's place in it. Lars used his connections and access to his family's dealings to release intellectual property and patents to the general public. He helped siphon the family's wealth and went on undiscovered for some time. But eventually, like anyone who messes around with the works of the richest and most powerful, he was caught and sentenced to life in prison. We were only one of many Laz's acquisitions, obtained in some forgotten little vault nobody had thought of in a century. He wore us when he didn't want to get his hands dirty because Laz was the kind of person who led by example. Whether it was robbing a bank or picketing a particularly pollution-heavy factory, he was there, often in disguise. We were there at the beginning of his downfall. Cinderlev was making one of her rare appearances at the annual meeting of global leaders, and Lars needed to be there picketing the main entrance, a rotten piece of nondescript fruit ready in our grasp. The crowd was deafening, but we threw the fruit and heard it splash against something before the sound of our creator's voice drifted through the outroar, so we were probably the only ones who recognized the words. I know that magic residue. Suddenly we were pulled spread-eagle by the familiar magic weaves we've known so long ago. Lars was holding his fists closed tight, grunting in pain, his mask pulled off and drifting to the ground.
I see. Such shame, grandson. You were the most promising.
The pull subsided, and Lars was immediately running away, bumping into the gathered crowd, panting with fear and an effort to get away. But his identity revealed, he couldn't run and hide forever. After our third keeper was arrested, we were only brought out of the evidence bags by investigators identifying us and taking material samples for their analysis. The last time we felt daylight was when the attorneys brought us out during the trial. Lars must have been there, but we didn't hear him. We heard Cinda respond during the questioning.
Yes, those gloves were taken from my private vault by the man in the security footage.
When she was asked if she saw the man in the courtroom, she said,
Yes, he is sitting right there.
We were unceremoniously bagged away and taken with other evidence into the court archives. Whether by accident or on purpose, we were separated, and now we feel the magic that bonds us unraveling, slowly, as we lie in the dark cold of the cellars surrounded by piles of other objects. We will not leave this place, and with the magic our memories will go as well. Useless, powerless, we might get eaten by mice, or slowly decompose over the centuries to come. Thank you for listening to this playthrough of the solo ttrpg Artefact, written and read by Emir Pasanovic. Artefact was designed and released by Jack Harrison, and the sound was provided with the game and composed by Christopher Michael Roberts. We hope you enjoy the playthrough and that it inspires you to find an artifact of your own and imagine the kinds of adventures it might go through.